So today I get to introduce a candidate right here from the Flathead, and he is running for a very important office. The U.S. Senate is an important position, and his name is Dr. Olszewski. I think everybody knows who he is, but he was born and raised here in Montana. He went to C.M. Russell High School and graduated from there. And he went to Carroll College in Helena and graduated with a degree in biology. From there, he went on to the University of Washington.
Yay!
He obtained a medical degree. Isn't this great? I get to introduce Montanans with a whole list of achievements for their lives. And from there, he went to the U.S. Air Force, and he completed his residency with the U.S. Air Force in orthopedics. So Dr. Olszewski is an orthopedic surgeon. And from there, he spent 10 years helping wounded warriors. And so if he wants to tell you a little bit more about that, I will let him do that, but talk about an important job right there. And then he returned to the Flathead, and he has been an orthopedic surgeon here for about 20 years. And he does work for Flathead Orthopedic, and he has a family here. As a matter of fact, we should all keep the Olszewski family in our prayers because he's about to have his first grandchild. But he does have 5 children. He is married to the very wonderful Nancy, and I will let him tell you more about his politics. He was elected to House District 11 in 2014. In 2016, he was elected to Senate District 6, and here he is running for the U.S. Senate. Dr. Olszewski.
Thank you, Jackie. Nicely done. You're hired. You're hired. Just an update on that. I'm the father of, now I can say 6 children. I have 4 biologic children. We have 1 adopted daughter. We have a foster daughter that's 9. And now that we're in the process of adopting, I get to publicly claim her. So and today, I'm fortunate that I have my wife, Nancy, is here. Where did she go? Up there. All right. My oldest daughter, Sierra, and with my grandchild. We'll find out about that one in another month or so. Sean Smith, my son-in-law, and my other daughter, Megan Smith. So they're in today. So basically, I introduced you to 80% of my campaign team. Well, it's nice to be here today. You know, I'm here because of you. You know, I became a Pachyderm member back in 2012. And what is the mission of Pachyderm? The mission of Pachyderm is to engage and educate on the issues at hand. It's not only to educate us, but then to encourage us to be active and dealing with those issues and help bring about change in our community. And oh, by the way, and if you can take the 3rd step, you know, jump into this and represent us on the city, the local stage, the county stage, the state stage. And today I'm here wanting to represent you at the level of the federal government. So, Albert Olszewski. So amongst friends, I'll tell you, you're saying it to yourself, Olszewski, how is he going to get elected with a name like Olszewski, right? So what you probably have heard is that going around the state, we've had to work with that name. And one of the ways that we work with that name is there's a commercial, but I'm telling people for the record, it's not Olszewski, it's not Olszewski. It's not even Dr. Oh So Sexy. Okay. It's Dr. Al Olszewski. And oh, by the way, there will be a spelling test on June 5th. And if you pick the name with the O and darken the circle, we all win. So vote the O. All right? That's our new saying. Vote the O. And if we do that, then we all win in Montana. Well, it's been a year since I jumped into the race. I was the first to jump in the race. It's been 1 year and 2 days. And I think to really talk about how we take back the seat from the National Democratic Party, what I need to do is give you a little story and remind you, or put everybody on the same page, because some of you know the story. On April 11th, I jumped in the race. Keith Regier was there. It was an exciting day, crazy day actually. And on the next day, April 12th, the House Speaker, Austin Knudsen, came up to me and said, Al, you can't be running for this race. You have to say you're running, you're exploring it, but you can't be running. And I said, Austin, what gives? I'm not going to go out and say, oh, by the way, I made a mistake yesterday. So tell me, what's behind this? And he said, look, Al, he said, I got a call from Washington, D.C. And they don't know who you are. You've never been vetted, and you've never been to their charm school. So you've got to get out of the race, because they don't want you there. And I said, Austin, did you tell them the seat belongs to Montana? And then, you know, thinking that it was over, I went back to my business. And 2 days later, on a Friday, we had 2 people fly all the way up from Washington, D.C. to talk to me. All right? And when I sat in front of them, I got permission from my majority leader to go early and leave my appropriations meeting and to go and talk with them. And the meeting sort of went like this. It went, I felt like I was 17 years old. I was late for curfew. Right? I crashed the car. I had a DUI and the sheriff was holding me. And oh, by the way, I had to tell my mom and dad that my girlfriend was pregnant. And that's about how that conversation went. And I cut it off short. At 55 minutes, I remember exactly. I said, you know what? We obviously are going to have to agree to disagree. You know, I'm running in this race for Montana, not for you. And then the third time, I did go back to Washington, and I talked to their bosses at the National Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee. And they were actually very polite. And they said, Dr. Olszewski, we only have one metric that we're looking at. If you have won a statewide race, then you can be one of our candidates that we will approve of. But if you haven't won a statewide race, then we don't want you in the race. And I said, thank you for being honest, because now I can go back and campaign that I am not your guy, right? So that was, so I stand in front of you today as one of the 4 candidates in this race, but I'm the only candidate that is a free agent, someone who is free to not only run my campaign the way I want, to speak on the issues the way I want, but also to be here and be asking, I want to work for you, and I want to represent you, and not a third party in Washington or an establishment that believes that this seat belongs to DC and not to Montana. So I want to set that tone and give you that history. And so we're all on the same page. So how do we take back the seat from the National Democrat Party and replace John Tester? Because right now, this seat has belonged to the National Democratic Party for quite some time. And really how we have to do this is a very straightforward, simple way. It's not easy, but it is straightforward. And that is that we need to engage John Tester and make him account for his voting record. We take him to the issues and we make him account for the way he stands and the way he votes. And you know, we start off, and we're going to go with issues that we have not done very well as a Republican Party with. So I'm a physician. So let's start with, let's start with public lands. So we start with public lands. So here's what's going on. As you've seen it, John Tester and the National Democratic Party and the Montana Democratic Party have said, we have to protect our public lands so you have access, and we have to maintain your freedom and access to our public lands here in Montana. And I'm the only one that can do it because those bad Republicans are going to gate off your roads. Well, if that isn't a bunch of hypocrisy, I mean, while John has been in the Senate and representing Montana, over 20,000 miles of roads have been gated, obstructed, or destroyed in Montana. So for him to say he's going to protect our access to public lands while at the same time the federal government eliminates you and me, our children, our parents, from being able to actually get on the land, whether it's for hiking, hunting, fishing, grazing, timber harvest, or even mineral extraction, that's hypocritical. And we need to hold them accountable for this. The Republican Party cannot take public land issues and stay on our heels, because if we stay on our heels, we're on our rear ends. We have to be on our toes, and we have to be aggressive and on the offensive right from the very beginning. And that's how we're going to engage Montana, not only for the side of the Republican Party, but for that middle. Because public lands, the Democrats have learned very quickly and earlier than we, that's not a party issue, that's a Montana issue. And we need to champion it and we need to win it. That's the very first issue we need to win on. just rolling right into it, because the way we have to keep John on the issues is to not let him get off the issues. So we quickly go into property rights. And there is no more personal and more valuable right than water. And we go right into water rights. And I'm telling you right now, I'm the only candidate of the 4 that is willing and able to be vocal and oppose the water compact for the Salish Kootenai tribe. And I'm amongst friends here, and you all are informed on the issue, but to just really put it into position. Our Montana Constitution states that the water belongs to the people of Montana for our enjoyment. It's a common property right for the common good of our state and our people. And what has happened is that we, Western Montana, lost that property right, not by the fact that we sold it. We didn't lose it because we gave it away by charity. We didn't even lose it by due process of law, where we lost it in court. No, we lost it through an unconstitutional taking and the breaking of the House rules in 2015. And that was simply unconstitutional and unfair. And if anybody stands up and says it was a fair process, what we have to say is, no, it wasn't, and we got to use some explicatives with it. All right? We're being taped. I'm not going to use explicatives. All right. Well, heck no. There we go. All right. But the fact is that with that water right being given away, Montana was not at the table in this discussion with a third party, the Salish Kootenai tribe. We were on the table. Right? We were on the table. And what we need to do is we need a new compact. And as your champion, we will have a new compact that will put us at the table negotiating with this third party, the Salish Kootenai tribe, and we will get a reasonable compact that is no different than the other tribes in our state. Right? But we need to do that because John has taken a firm stand on support for that issue, and he's wrapped it up with $3 billion for a tribe of 5,000 people. And I don't think if they get that money, it's going to change whether or not they're on Medicaid or not. I wish it would, right? But the fact is that money will disappear, and we won't know where it went. All right, now we roll into the third issue. And this issue, again, crosses property or party lines, and that is our most recent changes in our tax code. I mean, we've had the largest fundamental change in our tax code that puts money back in our pockets. I mean, taxes don't belong to the government. That money belongs to us. That's our money. And our Department of Revenue here in Montana was trying to find some way to make this a bad deal for Montana, but when they got done with it, the Department of Revenue for Montana estimates that the Trump tax cuts are going to put $750 million back into the pockets of Montanans. In our pockets. Now, to put that in proportion, the stimulus plan in 2008 gave Montana $550 million only for 2 years. It was from government to government with handcuffs. And that was supposed to stimulate our income, our economy. What we have now is we have $750 million in your pocket, not to a government, in your pocket for you to decide how you're going to stimulate Montana. Now, there has never been a better economic stimulus plan for our state or our country. And we need to make sure that John is held accountable for why he didn't vote for it, right? That is another issue. And then we roll into the fact that here we are in Montana, and one of the worst things that we've seen are hardworking families who build a business, a family business or a farm or a ranch. And when someone dies after paying taxes their whole life, the government says, you've got to give me your stuff. And you know what, the death tax of this bill has been lifted for the exemption high enough that now the average Montanan farmer rancher no longer has to sell off part of the farm to keep the farm. No longer does a family business have to sell off part or all of the business to keep that business, right? John, that crosses party lines, and he needs to be held accountable for it, right? So those are 3 issues that we need to deal with. And then finally, we could go on and on and on, but I think another one we need to bring up is besides the farmers, he has built a base amongst our veterans. He has. And what we know is the veterans of Montana, we are the second highest state per capita for veterans, but our veterans reflect Montana. 40% of our veterans are Republican, 19% of our Republicans are Democrat, and 41% of our veterans are independent, who happen to swing way left, right? So what I'm being told crossing the state is to say, Doc, you know, veterans issues, that's my special issue. And I'll tell you, if the Republican Party can have a veteran, and maybe you as a military doctor and someone who's worked in the VA, well, you know what? I can vote for the Republican Party. But if you don't have a veteran on this side, John is a ranking member of the VA committee, and he's the best deal on the ticket. So unless you give us somebody equal or has the potential of being better, we're voting for John, right? And the only way we can shake him on that is we have to have a better plan than John. John's plan is, I call it the John Tester Economic Stimulus Program, where he takes a lot of money and he throws it at the top. He throws it at the top of an administration or bureaucracy, and he hopes it trickles down to the customer. We just know that that doesn't work, right? The fact is the VA and any bureaucracy, they're never compassionate. A bureaucracy cannot be compassionate. The people who are on the front lines, they are compassionate. But the problem is they get ground down by the bureaucracy and the fact that they are unable to provide for the needs of our veterans. And you know what? Our veterans, if they have given part of their health and they've been harmed by service in our country, we do have an obligation to take care of that issue. So my action plan as a former veteran, as a person who worked in the VA, is that first of all, we have to refocus where the VA goes. And that starts with the culture. And the culture now has to focus on the veteran and not upon themselves, right? And I can give you story after story after story how that is the case. We have to take the bureaucracy, the Veterans Administration, and they have to become a bureaucracy that says yes, not no, and then make you fight for everything that you get. Second, we need to refocus the mission. The mission of the VA has creeped out vastly. And what we do is we refocus it so it is about the fighting man and woman. And what we do is we make sure they're number one in the world, giving the best possible treatment ever for what? For head injuries, for post-traumatic stress disorder, for spinal injuries, for double amputees or single amputees, for people who develop mental illness, or those that develop cancer because they've been exposed to harmful chemicals in the service of our country. The VA should be the number one provider in the world for those things. And if it's not service related, we need to be able to develop a conduit that brings them back into the civilian world so that they can get civilian access, quick access for their high blood pressure, for their high cholesterol, for their diabetes. You know, a woman veteran should not have to wait 3 years for her annual GYN examination. She should have the same relationship with her GYN doctor that everyone else expects, right? There should be a personal relationship, not every 3 years with someone that she's never met, if that's the issue, all right? So we want to refocus the mission, make sure it's about service-related injuries and disabilities, and they're number one in the world, right? And then number three, and then finally, we have to make sure that we quit over-promising and under-delivering, not only to our veterans, but to everybody, to our seniors, to our young, to our developmentally disabled. We have to quit taking programs that we've used to develop safety nets and blowing them up by using them as a vehicle to take care of other people that should not fit in that safety net, right? So we need to fix that. And we need to do that in a way that is done in a proactive way that's open and transparent. And I'll just say this, you know, one of the reasons that brought me here is that I guess maybe the straw on the camel's back. There was two straws. One was, I love being in this audience, and I love doing my job as a surgeon, and I would love to do it for the next 20 years. But in 2008, the Obama administration with the Democrats created a 2,000-page bill in the dark of night, behind closed doors, and crammed it down our throats and said, you'll learn what's in it after we pass it, right? That activated me to go from a happy surgeon who would just do my job, and 3 months before the election, figure out what's going on in the issues, vote, and and trust that my representatives were going to take care of me and I'd go back to what I love, right? That mobilized me and activated me to be here. It activated me and mobilized me to pay attention all year long. Well, when President Trump was our president, he was being thrashed, wasn't he? At the beginning of 2017, not only by the Democrats, not only by the media, but also by people in our party. And it was no more apparent than the Senate leadership. You know, the House has been working to the best of its ability in regular order. They passed a budget, you know, in September and sent it to the Senate. They sent over 540 bills from the House in regular order to the Senate. And the Senate has got 450 of them still sitting on the table. And what happened when it was time for a budget? Well, our Senate leadership, Mitch McConnell and his cronies, there were only 4 or 5 of them, in the dark of night, behind closed doors, with a crisis of shutting down our government, created an over 2,000-page omnibus bill worth $1.3 trillion, and they told us that we had to pass it to find out what's in it. You know what? That has got to stop. And the only way we can do that is get more senators in the Republican Party that are going to say, this has got to stop, and we need new leadership. All right? That is my number one function that I can see. You can't fix our society, we can't fix our budget until we fix our government, and right now it needs to be fixed in the Senate and at the Senate leadership. All right? So, from what I've told you, I can tell you, I would just want to sum it up like this, is that, you know, I am like you. I am you. All right? I am doing what the mission of the Pachyderm Club has said is to be informed, engage the public, and if you can, move on and represent us. All right? So that's where I'm here, as a member of you, as just simply as someone who's a pachyderm. But through this process, not only am I a physician, a father, you know, and a fighter, but we can see that as a legislator, I'm battle tested. And oh, by the way, after going to Washington with our altercations, I can tell you I'm swamp proof. So with that, I would be in trouble if I don't say my website is alforsenate.us, that we have a Facebook site. If you could like us on that, it's Building Momentum. You can help us do that. And also, I will tell you that there's an independent third party has put together a website called swampproof.org. Check it out. Check it out. If you would like to know more about me or my stance on the issues, please go to alforsenate.us. That is alforsenate.us. Thank you.